For Monday, October 3rd, 2022 to order. Our first order of business is delegations. 2.1, presentation to our former mayor, Dale Bumstead. I feel completely privileged and honored to be the one doing this today. I had the opportunity on the weekend to go to an event where Dale was at and some of the city councilors, and just to see how you touch this community, Dale, and it was all about that for me, like just seeing how you've come into this with your heart and wide open and doing what's right. It's definitely some big shoes to fill, and I, on behalf of the city and, the city staff, the council, myself, and all of the city, we're extremely thankful and grateful to have you as representing our city for 9 years. So thank you, and we got you a little gift and a gold-plated name. But I was also wanting to see if we could get all the council to come out and get a picture with you as well. Perfect. Yeah. So thank you, Darcy. You're welcome.
You're going to go and lead whack everybody. All right.
Thank you, Darcy. And I just if I can, I just want a couple of things. Obviously, popped up on Facebook the other day, September 24th, 2013, I got sworn in as mayor in the by-election that year for the city. And you get the opportunity, and every day to me I was humbled by that opportunity that was given to me by the residents of the city of Dawson Creek, who support you and put their X beside your name to represent the community and the city, and that never was ever lost on me in terms of how important that is to see that support you get from the community. And this is home for me. Laverne and I both born and raised here, raised our family here. And I think for every councillor who sits here, every one of us in the current position and every one of the folks who have served on our community as mayor and council do it because we love the city and we love the community, and just to give back to the community is always, I think, that important piece that everyone should always remember about why people sit here and try to serve their community, is to try to make our city a better place. And that was always the motivation for me. And so for 9 years, you get to be able to be the mayor of the city of Dawson Creek, and honest to goodness, 99% of that was unbelievably good. There wasn't a day that I didn't get up to think, holy, how good is this, that you get to be able to represent the community and go out, and the opportunities that are created and given to you as the mayor, and with the community, with community groups, industry, business, community organizations, volunteer groups, everybody are always welcoming to the mayor and certainly to me, and I always appreciated that. So I'm going to miss it like crazy. Honestly, it's something that you get into, and you can always find one more reason to do one more term. And but I think last year COVID was tough. It was tough on all of us, everybody. Nobody was immune from feeling that. I think that vulnerability people felt about being threatened by their loss of their freedoms and abundance that we've grown up with was a tough time for all of us, and certainly it was for me personally as the mayor and my family. And from that perspective, when I got to the decision where I said, if I'm not feeling like I should run again, I'm not the right person to run again. And so that was when the decision was easy to be made at that time. I want to thank all of the past councillors in that first term. Charlie and Shaylee obviously were here at that very first term. Councillor Schumann, Councillor McFadden, Councillor Kenny, Councillor Malkinson, and then the next term, Councillor Javetkov joined, and that next year, and Councillor Mark Rogers. And then this past term with these guys. And I say this, people have asked me what was and has been part of that, the most enjoyable part about being the mayor. And I said, the one thing that I have always appreciated with every council that I got to sit with and work with democracy should be that we all support majority, no matter what side of the position you are on or you represent. You come to council, you give your input. We're elected to give that position that we represent, our opinion. We have great discussion, great debate. And then the vote takes place, and our councils, I think, have been split 4-3 more than what you would ever believe humanly possible. But that's so good to me to see that debate take place, that discussion take place, for the residents to know what their councils are supporting and how they view things. And then the council would leave this room supporting each other and support the majority and never taking it personally and throwing pencils at each other. It was always such a positive environment to me to be a part of, and it was always a joy to chair the meetings of this group and past groups. So I want to say thank you to all of those councillors, current and past. I want to say thank you to administration. I don't know, obviously, having gone through 5, I was thinking about it the other day, 4 or 5 executive assistants, obviously I was tough on them. It's not a great track record, maybe. But honestly, every one of them, Julie, Kelsey, Tab, Becky, Kathy, Tanya, were really, really unbelievably supportive to me, and I couldn't have done the work that you do without them. And to administration, to Jim Shute, who was CAO when I first started, and Duncan, and now Blair, all the administration, Brenda and Kevin have been here for the entire 9 years, and I sincerely appreciate the support. And all of the senior team, all of those folks who come here every day, and I say this out without reservation, it's just a pleasure to be able to come in here and see how hard people work and care about this community. And I take that away as a huge thank you to them for all of the work they've done. So really, I just am so appreciative of the opportunity, and so appreciative of the time I got to spend as being elected as the mayor of Dawson Creek. And I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss the interactions and the fun, the excitement, and all the stuff that goes with it. But it's also good to have that transition and change. So I want to thank everybody. And thank you guys for giving me this opportunity this morning to say thank you. Thank you.
We can get everybody up for a picture, and thank you, Dale.
9 years ago, my grandchildren were under this table while we were getting sworn in by the judge. I
seen that picture of them hiding underneath it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so was late. I was driving from kindergarten.
Morning. Thank you.
How come you heard them?
Get in here. Get in here.
Thank you.
Dale, do you want one with the staff? Do you like everybody? Or do you want one?
Just mayor, council first.
Then the staff?
All right, I'll stand in the back of these things. I don't know how it goes.
Scooch in.
I don't know. Me and Charlie are in the back, or we say each other.
As long as we can see it.
We'll do a video. We'll do a video so we can get Jeremy.
Oh my God. Perfect, thank you.
And then maybe one more with all the staff too. Yep.
No, I think
everybody.
Wow.
Everybody, Dale?
You're paying
We're taking a picture.
We're gonna get another picture. Yeah, another picture, Paul. Yeah, run and hide that quick.
Trying.
Sorry. Will you give me a while hugging people? Because I don't think you had to notice that before?
Oh, yeah, I had.
He's going to be a while hugging people, so I'm going to grab a coffee.
Don't forget to hug all the
They
delegation.
should have told you that.
The delegation went out.
Actually, just a little bit.
Half an hour of hugs.
Come forward so we don't have, yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
More video.
Short people to the front.
Dale was trying to hold my hand on the last picture.
Can't see the camera, the camera can't see you. All right. Pass it to him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go to work.
Enjoy your weed whacker a week before snow starts falling.
It's still weed whacking season. Thank you, everybody. See you guys.
The next order of business is 2.2. We have Robin O'Reilly, a resident of Dawson Creek. Reason the presentation of the City of Dawson Creek Certificate of Recognition for representing Dawson Creek in the Canada 55 plus games in Kamloops and the BC 55 plus games in Victoria in the swimming category. So our Certificate of Recognition presented to Robin O'Reilly in recognition of representing the City of Dawson Creek at the Canada 55 plus games in Kamloops and the BC 55 plus games in Victoria. On behalf of City Council, thank you for representing our community to the province and the nation, and congratulations on bringing home 3 gold medals at the Canada 55 plus games and 4 gold medals and 2 silver medals at the BC 55 plus games in the swimming category in August and September 2022. I also did a little research too, and I was looking, you've been doing this for 21 years, but I think that you've got over 160 medals, it was said. So I think it's just such like a, a huge accomplishment and something for all of Dawson Creek to look up to and be thankful that you've done this, and it's such a great accomplishment. So we're very excited to present this to you. So
Thank you.
yeah. You can come up here, Robin, and I will give you this. Congratulations. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Kathy wants to get it.
Yep, lots of photos today.
So don't go. Oh. Been in tears twice already this morning. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Robin. Next is 2.3. We have Janice MD, Marlene Presley, Athena Robertson, and Brenna Warren here from the Ministry of Children and Family Development. Oh, and the Ministry of Children and Family Development, Tiffany, but so this is a proclamation. Whereas thousands of British Columbian foster families provide alternate family care for children temporarily unavailable to live with their families. And whereas foster families are an integral and valued part of the team of public and private professionals serving the families and children of British Columbia. And whereas foster families are asked to provide emotional support and care for children who will eventually return to their own families. And whereas fostering is a community responsibility and foster families build stronger communities. And whereas the City of Dawson Creek wishes to recognize the care, compassion, and unselfish commitment of foster families within its boundaries and surrounding areas. Now therefore, I do hereby proclaim October 2022 as Foster Family Month in Dawson Creek. So I'll give you that too. I just wanted to thank you too for all you do. It's it's definitely, you need to be a special person to give back at this level as foster care. And I had the privilege of growing up where my auntie and uncle were very involved in foster care, and I got to see, it wasn't easy for them always bringing kids in, but it was always about doing what was right, and it was very, heartwarming, and it's, it's just, words don't explain how important it is what you do for our community and for those that are in need, so thank you very much. So.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say a little blurb about what we do. We need to celebrate the hardworking foster parents in our community. These families work selflessly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep our kids happy and healthy all year round. Foster parents open their hearts and homes to keep the young people safe, nurtured, and accepted within our community, which isn't always easy. Foster parents are rewarded by learning our children's culture, traditions, and the blending of their cultures in our homes as well. Everyone benefits from this interaction. October is the month to honor and acknowledge their devotion and dedication to this chosen position within our community.
Thank you. We can have you come up and we'll get a picture.
Shaking.
It's an emotional morning. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Thank you. So I have to drop this one this time, but it's not clipped in at the bottom, so. You got it? Okay.
Thank you.
Got one with Amy?
I don't know, do you want one with you, Amy?
Are you acknowledging
Okay.
her today?
Everybody knows she's my daughter. Thank you. Wasn't at 7 this morning, let me tell ya.
Thank you.
See you later, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 2.4, Mr. John, is it Bucko? Okay, sorry. Principal Environmental Design Solutions Group Incorporated in attendance, reason finding and recommendations for culture, parks and rec master plan for the city of Dawson Creek. So you can come up to the delegation there.
Just to keep it going forwards and backwards.
That might be a little small to read, but I'll.
Should be. There you go.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm just going to bring a slightly bigger version in front of me here. All right, I'll try this. All right, thank you, Your Worship, members of council. My name is John Butchko with EDS Group. I'm a landscape architect, urban designer, and I've been involved with the Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan for the last number of months. So we're here today to give you a bit of an overview of the project scope that we went through, talk about the engagement program that we were involved with to date. We've provided in your council package a list of recommended actions. We're not going to go into those in detail because they have been provided, but just to give you a sense of what the direction is of the plan and what these plans do recommend. And lastly, some of the next steps, how we plan to close this report and the exciting thing about implementing the plan in years to come. So who are we? EDS Group. We're supported by a group called Quantum Recreation, recreation specialists. We're, again, consultants that work across Western Canada with a strong focus on municipal work such as this. We have a really strong focus on public and stakeholder engagement. I like to think that we do it a lot better than most, and we firmly believe in the importance of engagement in part of any of these community planning processes. One of my big passions is human connections to the natural environment and the health benefits that are associated with routine contact with the natural environment. And you certainly have a number of great opportunities within the community and certainly surrounding Dawson to be great opportunities for people to engage with the natural realm. The last thing is promoting authenticity, and that's something that our firm is quite adamant on. These plans are locally grown. They're based on engagement. We don't take a plan from another community and try to adopt it in a new one. It has to be authentic and really resonate based on the needs of your community. What do we bring? Humility and an eagerness to listen. I'm a small town kid, learned to listen when you should listen and really listen to the stakeholders. So meaningful engagement is not just doing the actions, it's actually doing something with those recommendations and trying to apply them. We have 20 years of experience working in municipalities like this, so we've seen the political pressures, the financial pressures, all of the nuances that municipal politics has, and certainly the way in which residents have demands on parks, recreation, and culture. We bring multifaceted perspectives. So we're not looking at this through the lens simply of park planning or simply through cultural planning. This is about looking at economics, political pressures, what is reasonably able to be funded, what are some of the environmental considerations, what are the regulatory considerations provincially and federally that can affect the plan. So we try to look at these plans through many different lenses, and even through engagement we try to ensure that we get perspectives from that multifaceted view. Lastly, and I've said this already, the belief that strong community and stakeholder engagement is part of any process. So without that, we wouldn't do the plan. It's really important that we do listen. So what is a master plan? A master plan is not going to tell you where we are cutting grass and to what height. It's not telling us what swim program is going to be at 5 p.m. on an evening. It's not going to tell you what your cultural event should be programmed to be. It's more of an overarching document that guides decision making. Secondly, it's not a statutory plan. We're not passing this through bylaw, but hopefully it does have the teeth and rigor like a statutory plan, where things like your official community plan and other planning instruments will refer to it. And hopefully your council's strategic plan will look at this and say, that's an important document for us to latch onto. Nextly, it provides strategic direction on how facilities, amenities are programmed, the future growth of the system. So we look at your current amenities and facilities. We decide through this plan, do we need more in the near short term or in the long term, or how can we do better with what we already have? And I think the most important aspect that we do first is how can we do better and optimize and work with what we already have so that we're not overextending ourselves with facilities, amenities that are unnecessary. And again, having a well-rounded perspective is important with master plans. Some of the guiding principles, first is safety and comfort for all people as they use public facilities, parks, and open spaces. So public safety is very important. Secondly, we're a winter community. So having year-round activities that are accessible within facilities and amenities is important. So thinking about outdoor spaces, winter activation, cultural events that can take place year-round, not just focusing on the summer months. I've spoken to optimization. Of course, that's extremely important. We want to ensure that we're not just thinking about peak time. So many communities we go and say, we need another hockey arena because there's no ice left. More often than not, it's peak time is not available, but the shoulder season or the shoulder periods are. So we have to work with stakeholders oftentimes to have them understand that, look, it's not optimal, but let's work with what we already have. Having an improved environmental ethic, and many communities are very far behind. They don't have, for example, an inventory of what their environmentally sensitive sites are. And it's important that we catch up on that, not because we believe in it as humans. There is a stronger affinity for people to engage in the natural environment. But from a regulatory perspective, you have obligations provincially and federally to do certain things. So we have to play a bit of catch up. Lastly, we want to meet the needs of residents first. And something that we heard in the engagement program is this is not about creating a parks, rec, and cultural system for Dawson Creek that is attractive for tourists. We didn't hear a lot about sport tourism. We didn't hear a lot about let's get hotels bustling. This is about meeting residents' needs first. So that's front and foremost of one of the principles within the project. Some of the outcomes, and we're hoping that council and certainly administration feels that recreation is an essential service. It is an essential service. Health in the built environment is extremely important. Promoting health, giving people the opportunity to engage, to have a great sense of place, to have memorable communities. Those are extremely important. So recreation is essential. Secondly, having a set of clear, reasonable, and measurable actions. So in the council package, you received a number of actions in the immediate to the long term. They have to be clear. They can't be pie in the sky. They can't be something that's open to interpretation. We want them clear and measurable because we want to ensure that they could be attainable. And then once they're achieved, we clearly know they've been achieved. We want to develop new partnerships. The city can't do it alone. No municipality can offer parks, rec, and cultural services alone. And you don't. There's third-party groups, leaseholders, there's a number of individuals who do it better than municipalities, and we want to latch onto those partnerships so that they're delivered, they're funded, they're operated. And there's a sense of pride also when you have volunteers and others that come and help offer help in these services. So we want to ensure that we're open to partnerships. One of the other outcomes is having a defined roadmap to deliver cultural activities, offer X services, manage parks and facilities. So it is a bit of a roadmap. So it'll help guide future capital spending, operational funds. Where do we, this is maybe where we get into, maybe we mow less and we do more with naturalization as a principle. Lastly, another outcome is demonstrating value in public and stakeholder engagement and planning processes. We're hoping that this is going to become a model to how future plans can be assembled in Dawson Creek, where we do get together stakeholders, the public, we reach out to third-party groups. We hope that this becomes the norm, because I believe in it and it does work. How do we get there? So we started off with a background review, going through all of your statutory and non-statutory plans. We evaluated the sites. We spent a few days going through every facility. We crawled through the basement, the belly of mechanical rooms, just to get a good sense of how are we doing and what's available to us and what is really the state of facilities and open spaces within the community. We had internal staff interviews with a number of staff, stakeholder engagement sessions that we've completed to date, and there is a What We Heard report for a couple of those sessions in your council package as well. We continue through that stakeholder engagement program, which we're still in the midst of doing right now. The draft report, we do have a report, I don't know, it's about an 80-pager at this point, with a series of maps and recommendations that we're working with administration to finalize. Then we go back to the stakeholders, and later this month we have another engagement session with our key stakeholders again. We do have another public open house. This afternoon I'm at Seniors Hall for an hour to talk to them about this plan. We're going into the schools later this month as well to meet with a couple of student groups. So the engagement certainly isn't done yet. And then we finalize the plan. The intention is to have a final plan available in November for the new council when it sits. So, locally grown. Extremely important that we consider local values as we create this plan. Thinking about not necessarily just programmed activities, but something like we call it sporadic play or non-programmed use. Just people engaging in the outdoors the way they want to engage it is extremely important. We have to look at our facilities. We have to optimize them in these plans and make sure that we are, for the major expenditures like these large facilities, that we're doing the most we can with them. We have to think beyond the city limits too, and that's part of the recreational network as well, is the regional trails, the regional creeks and rivers that we could enjoy. Lastly, programs and events, I think, is extremely important to think about how do we express ourselves as a community and create that sense of place. So those activities, the programming side of it is extremely important. This sets the stage for what do we need to do, and then it's up to the administration to then interpret that and decide what events get put on. I've spoken about winter communities, and I can't say enough about the importance of ensuring that we have good quality recreation year-round. Lastly, with the natural environment, we have to have this environmental ethic. One, people demand it, and people are not putting a blind eye to the impact that recreation has on the natural environment. We have to do things in a more sustainable way and work with the natural features. Dawson Creek is certainly surrounded by it. Within the engagement program, again, as I mentioned, we've provided a couple of What We Heard reports in the council package, so you can see statistically what people are saying and how that translates into the recommendations. We had over 10 staff interviews with individuals within administration. Our stakeholder workshop, we had about 46 attendees come to that session, everything from adult drop-in ball to minor hockey to third-party operators. Then we had a post-workshop public open house session where people came in to see the results of the workshop, and that was a few months ago. Our council presentation that we have here today, and then, as I mentioned, re-engaging stakeholders over the next month to show them the results and test them. So we're not done, and there may be new recommendations that arise. There may be some that we need to bolster, tweak, that might fall off of the list. Then we have our final public open house before this comes to council for reconsideration. Some of the key findings, and again, this is us working in many communities across Western Canada. The administration really is doing an incredible job with limited resources. They are in our opinion, based on, again, working in a number of communities, doing incredible things with a skeletal staff. So this is not an FTE, it was our full-time equivalent analysis. We're not here to look at employee use and whatnot, but from what we're seeing, they're doing incredible things with a skeletal crew. I can't say that enough. Should I say it one more time? Stakeholders, they're generally content with the existing amenities. So we're looking at not a major change in the barometer, but they are generally content with what is offered to them. The public and stakeholder focus was toward local needs. We didn't, again, I mentioned not a huge demand to say, let's go with sports tourism or let's bolster tourism here. That wasn't the focus with the stakeholder groups. Local trends, very consistent with what we see regionally, provincially, nationally. So trails, for example. I can't say enough about trails on the outdoor side. One of the highest priority. Water parks and trails seems to be across Western Canada strong, exactly the same here in Dawson. Recreation, it's not valued in a lot of ways. And it comes down to the expenditures. We look at the limited funding that's put toward programming and events and facility maintenance. It's on the low side across the board. So from a financial perspective, Dawson is doing a lot with limited resources comparatively to other municipalities per capita on what they're expending in recreation. There is a project website that is dedicated solely to this project. There is a link off of the city's website, so it allows residents throughout the whole process to look at draft reports, look at maps, look at what has been done to date. Our surveys have been hosted there, and they'll continue to be until the project is completed in the next month or two. Some of the key findings. There's my fifth time to say it. Administration is doing incredible work with skeletal resources. Stakeholders generally content. Third key finding is that the focus on local needs, less on us becoming a destination as a city or a tourist draw. Fourthly, those local trends that we're seeing here are consistent. There's not a inconsistency as it relates to comparative to provincial and national trends that we see in recreation. And then recreation just having that low value as it goes to investment. Within the draft actions that we've provided, as I said, we want to make sure they are clear, achievable, and measurable. So part of the action plan within the report is to say, here are your recommendations, here's how we're going to measure them. And then we're also recommending that in 5 years from now, there's a revisit. Not hiring another consultant, but administration maybe having a one-day workshop to say, all right, here's how we've done, here's our progress to date, and maybe recalibrate the focus. Allow maybe the council's strategic plan the new one to come into play and see how it influences it. Although this has a 10-year horizon, we do want to have that 5-year gut check to make sure we're on track. Second action, we want to identify who's responsible. So some of the actions you can see have been assigned council, community partners, or general public. And some of the actions are geared strictly toward community partners because we feel they should be engaged in that action. There are different types of recommendations. The first is continued. That means keep doing what we're already doing. And they are important and reinforced through the engagement process. Immediate term are things we can start now and do within the next 3 years. Medium and long term, which is fairly consistent with most master plan horizons that have a 10-year shelf life. And as I said, revisit and recalibrate this over the next 5 years. I'm not going to go through all the actions that we've listed, just to say that they have been in no ranking order, provided A, B, C, D, E in the different horizons, how they are organized. We've tried to say, what did we hear? So it's not just an action. They say, well, where did that come from? Is that just the consultant telling us what we need to do? We tried to have the premise of it based on what we researched, what we've seen, but more importantly, what have we heard from the engagement process. Next steps. We're going to receive feedback today, and certainly we do value your perspective. Although this is an outgoing council, some of you may return, but nonetheless important that we receive feedback from you either in this meeting or certainly reach out to administration, to Shante and others with your perspectives on what you've seen so far. We're going to work with administration to finalize our report over the next 6 weeks. October 17th is our next stakeholder date that we have as a placeholder. That'll be affirmed today, where we're going to re-engage our stakeholders, probably we may do it in person, but likely an online session to try to get a larger cast of people involved, and a public open house we'll start advertising this week. We'll then finalize the plan once we get the reaction from the public on the recommendations, and then looking for council endorsement in approximately November of 2022. I'll take any questions that you have. And before we do that, I just want to acknowledge the work of administration. Shante is our fearless leader in this process. Aaron Molina are also involved in a very big way in orchestrating things in the background, helping with background research. They've provided literally 100-plus documents for us to review and done a fantastic job of doing that legwork for us. So I just want to take the time to acknowledge our key team here within the city. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your presentation. It's nice to see, and thank you to the staff, too, for putting all this together. So is there any questions? Councillor Parslow.
Thank you. I feel I must react to some of the things you've said. First of all, the schedule. A new council is going to be here, a new mayor, and they were going to begin to be looking at budget. And in November, they've been asked to approve or whatever the report, right? I think that's way too soon. They will not even understand the basics of the city's operation. They will have no idea of the budget issues and all the other things. So I really, when you said that, my stomach turned over, okay? So it's not a criticism, it's just a comment, okay? Not asking for any response. It's something that but it's something that, you know, from time we get a lot of consultant reports, and sometimes they clash. You know, one consultant says this, another says something else. We had one recently, which was on the organizational efficiency. Blair can correct me, that's the wrong title, but it looked at our organizational structure and so on. And I remember the comment that for recreation, for the size of our community, we're punching way above our weight. The other thing that always bothers me with, I believe in consultation, but I'm often left with what's informing this input. I've done some work, different organizations, and you'll get, let's say, an organization very well represented at these consultation meetings, and their collective membership in their particular interest might be in the community in the low 20s. And yet another interest group which might have 1,100 people engaged in their particular activities are only represented by a couple. So how does one compensate for that distortion? And the other is, you know, I often say, well, now what's informing this input? For instance, if we talked about the topic of I forget the term they use in Alberta, field house, the concept of a field house, and the concept of indoor soccer facilities, they have no idea, because their whole paradigm of sport is dominated, let's say, by an ice sport, right? The fact that our demographics show clearly that some sports are stationary in numbers, some are declining, some are increasing. And you do make mention in your report about the college, right? I've had all sorts of requests from people for indoor cricket, okay? A proper outdoor cricket facility and so on, because our demographics are changing. So I'm wondering how you deal with the dynamics I've just presented to you.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to you, Councillor. There's never a consistent way in which we deal with what we call noise in the process, where you might have inconsistencies in the data that deviates your recommendation. When we, for example, come up with our priorities within the draft report, there will be the top, say, 15 or 20 indoor and outdoor recreation items. So it'll prioritize them 1 through 15 or 20. That's not just based on one source. It's not just based on engagement. We may have done engagement when there happened to be a lot of hockey tournaments and we didn't have good representation for minor hockey. Or, as you've suggested, we may have one organization that brought 12 people to the session, and so 12 out of 47 really had one perspective. we see through that, and through the process, rather than just listening to that collective group within the room, that's why we do stakeholder interviews. So we do reach out to all the other groups by phone, by email, and consider that. We certainly look at what other trends are, and we know the politics as well. We know, I'll just use minor hockey as an example. They were extremely good to work with in this process. In some communities, they tend to be the ones that are very greedy when it comes to, say, primetime ice. But we know the politics of primetime ice. So that plays in. So when going back to that prioritization of the 1 to 20, the top 20 of indoor and outdoor events, we do an aggregated blend that influences it. So what we heard in stakeholder sessions might have a value of 3. What the provincial trends might have a value of 1. What we're hearing from administration and council might have a value of 2. So we're looking at a multifaceted background to making those decisions and making those priorities. So it's not just based on who was in the room that day of those 46 individuals. There's a big flaw in doing that. Your sample size, 46 people that we had involved out of thousands of residents, that's not statistically valid. So the outreach that we do, and the reason why it takes a couple of months to come up with these priorities, is because we do that outreach. So rest assured, when one group might come highly represented versus others, we seek those others out because it's important. Hence me going to Seniors Hall today. That's a group that we didn't have representation from, thinking that, you know what, this is an extremely important part of our population. We're an aging population. We need to go onto their turf and have a meal with them. So those are the types of tactics that we used. I hope that answers your question with respect to that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Council?
He's asked me a question.
Okay.
Yes, it does in
Councillor
part, okay, for sure. And I didn't want you to respond to the November thing. I just shared that as information, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Thank you. Thank you for the report. One thing that I've noticed, so I was a part of the lovely report back in 2006, so that's aging myself a little bit. And I do know that kind of got shelved, and that's just how things change. But one thing that I do appreciate, and I've been watching, so I know this summer we had, I think they used to be called Park and Play, anyone can correct me, but events for younger children and families in the park, and they were very well attended. And I think part of a group dynamic, and I'm not even sure how we engage or bring that about maybe through the high schools, but where I see a gap is 13 to 18-year-olds, that it's not organized sports or organized events, that it's just things for them to do. So I know we have the skateboard park, but not everybody skateboards. So it's those pieces as well. So what I find interesting, and I like partnerships and looking at it, is it's about utilizing the spaces we have and maintaining them. And really families are about, getting out and walking and going to our local parks, not so much organized sports, because I think families are starting to realize maybe, and it's in your report, that we're overscheduling ourselves, right? We have to be involved rather than slowing down. And I think that's something that we're learning coming out of COVID and being at home, is that family time's important. So for me, when I look at reaching out to the community, and I do agree with Councillor Parslow, our timeline might need to be adjusted a bit, just because of the year, it's silly season and the year that it is. But yeah, so it's more of the unorganized, non-program use of the community. And I know I've heard from quite a few, like we have aging swing sets and different things in our park. So it's looking at those spaces too. So I do appreciate that you've identified those in this report, and we need to have a greater look at that. But as far as engagement goes, the only thing that I can suggest is that 13 to 18-year-old gap. That's when we lose kids. And so we need to look at what we can do for them within our planning.
If I may, through the chair to you, Councillor, the kind of that teenager, young adult cohort is a challenging one. They're a challenging one to engage with. They don't like coming to open houses. They're a bit too cool for that. We do go to the classrooms, and they kind of look beyond the assignment, and there are some challenges, but we do our very best. And certainly what we know about that group is that's when they make very key decisions, if they're going to stay within the community or not. One of the recommendations in the report is for downtown enhancement, revitalization, but a catalyst. And that would be a facility, and we have generally identified where we want to be near the arenas with it, but an outdoor skating rink, a multi-purpose pad that has no necessarily one defined function. It could be used for bouncing a ball, for gathering. It could be a seating area. It could be for having conversation. It could be for skating in the winter. It could be for a number of things, markets, events, or maybe you pull out an amp and somebody just starts playing, and youth have a youth band in the park. That kind of a dynamic space suits that cohort very well. So that is one of the few projects for a new facility and amenities that we did recommend in the draft report, and that does cater to that group. And having that place for teenagers to showcase themselves, to see, to be seen, we think is a very important part. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for being here today and for this report. I've perused it, but it's a long one, so I'll probably have to give it another look. A couple thoughts. First, I did appreciate the concrete suggestions around bathrooms and access to restrooms in some of our park area, because I know, when you go to those play in the park things with a 5-year-old, it's a wonderful opportunity, but, if you time your juice box wrong, you're leaving early. And I think, and similarly, as those parks get more use from emerging niche sports like, Frisbee golf or disc golf, I think being able to accommodate those folks and ensure that they're not, needlessly troubled by that stuff, I think is great. The conversation around naturalization and how we are putting our finite resources to their best use, I think, is a very important one. We have a lot of park space in this community. Some of it is very well utilized. Some of it is not as well utilized, and it all needs to be maintained at some level. And we do need to do a much deeper dive into where are we getting the best bang for our buck, where are we looking to expand our walking trails and presence there, and where do we need to build or update our playgrounds. But there are some parks that really, I don't want to say they're a drain on resource, but I think were they allowed to kind of return to nature, it would not appreciably impact the quality of life of a lot of people, and it would allow us to then deploy those resources in a way that might yield more value. And last point or last thought, I guess, just to echo Councillor Parslow's sentiment with respect to our resourcing for recreation, because I similarly, when I read the report he alluded to, it suggested that we had a very high level of discretionary spending, specifically on recreational and cultural services and amenities. Moreover, when I look at and I think you use the phrase per capita. So I it's hard for me to say per capita, but if I were to look at another relatively remote community of 12 to 13,000 people and compare amenities, I can't think of a bunch off the top of my head who have as much as we offer. If we're comparing ourselves to Grand Prairie, I guess they're within an hour, but it's not necessarily a fair-minded comparison. But in looking at how I break it down is usually most municipalities, the single largest line item in their budget is always protective services. And then usually the recreation and cultural services are second or third and are about 1/2 to 2/3 of what they spend on protective services. In our community, they're running pretty neck and neck. So I'm not sure, I appreciate people's input, but to see the bullet point that it's not valued or the perception that it's not valued. I'd argue prior to this council, a generation's worth of capital infrastructure money was spent building out our recreational and cultural amenities, be it the multiplex, be it the Calvin Crook Center for the Arts. So I don't know, when I see feedback like that, I'm not sure exactly what I can do with it as an elected official, knowing what our obligations are financially in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Shantae, did you want to?
Through the chair, I'm just going to address the November date. So in 2006, I was involved as well with the master plan. And so it was decided, I came onto the position last year. And we needed to decide what we wanted to do with our department. How do we want to move forward? Melina and Aaron were applying for grants because we hadn't been applying for grants as much as we should, but we require some kind of documentation, which would be a master plan that states things that we need to do because we need to have engagement. So the master plan came this year. We started in May, and so a new council comes about, and that there's never a perfect time for it. So what happens is November was the date that ended up coming by the time that we finish it. Is it perfect date? Not necessarily is it, but we need to have something to move forward because in 20 years, what new playground did we put out there? What do we have out there in the parks? How do we engage people? So that's why we did the master plan, to engage so we could decide how do we move forward, because I'm going to leave one of these days in the next couple of years or so because I'm going to retire. But we have to leave something, and Blair's going as well. What are we going to do? How can we move what recreation needs to happen? So there's no perfect date. So that's a date that we have in November, and we'll have to figure out how we're going to work with that, and hopefully the new council can decide with what happens. But if we do want to move forward and we do want to take some of the recommendations, council's going to need to look and decide if they're going to put so much money towards these recreation services to improve in the years to come, and how are we going to view recreation. So I just wanted to address that because that is more to do with us than it has to do with Ed's group, and we're very thankful for the Ed's group for working with us. They came to be part of the group. One of the reasons why we were excited to have them is they have a website so that the community who is our taxpayers and in the region as well that do put some money towards it have the opportunity to see what's happening and be part of that engagement. We're very happy with how the engagement has come and has about, and we think that we are trying to move forward, trying to get as many people as we can. October 17th we will as well.
Thanks, Shantae. And I don't know if we're going to let you retire, but we'll see. I had a couple of comments I wanted to add. It's a nice report, and it's obviously a lengthy one, and went through it, and it's good to see the interaction with people, and how you mentioned that you're going to meet with the seniors and going to meet with the schools as well. So I think it's important that we engage those groups. And I agree with Councillor Wilbur about that, that age demographic between 13 to 16. And I know when I grew up here and was in that age group and didn't know which direction I was going to go, there was youth groups and things that actually somebody sitting across from me organized, and one of my first experiences was sitting in those. So I think it's good to engage that. And also, too, that I was speaking with somebody last week, there's a large group of that age group that's not going to school. So to be able to reach out to them, which I could maybe help get in contact with. And also that the homeschooled group after coming out of the pandemic is fairly large in this area. Like, I think it's 200 plus students that are homeschooled in the Dawson Creek area. So I think if we're going to look at, like you said, you're going to go to schools, it might be just an idea to engage those groups as well. And I have some contacts with them, so if it's something you're interested in, you can just reach out to me and I could pass that info on to you. But yeah, no, just wanted to thank you for the report. It's exciting to see to see it. So yeah, so thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. The next report is going to be even longer, so get ready.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make just one, it wasn't a question to me, but from a previous councillor, comment about naturalization. That's something that I really do want to maybe give a minute here because it is important. Most communities are moving toward doing less, mowing less. My observation is there's probably 30% of your inventory of open space that you do mow that you could probably not mow in an attractive way, let it go naturalized. One, of course, there's the less obligation for maintenance. Secondly, habitat, you're creating new habitat. Your lawnmowers, the greenhouse gas emissions off of those is horrendous just with those, the motors. There's a number of reasons why we want to move towards naturalization. And I do want to acknowledge that administration has already asked us as one of our first quick action items, hot off the gate, to actually do a naturalization strategy, to look at your outdoor space and call it a mowing strategy, but to make those decisions to move forward. So administration did recognize that early on as an imminent need to do better with it. One, to reduce obligations, but secondly, to follow that trend of naturalization. So just wanted to put in a quick plug with that again, because it's something that you'll see coming shortly is some recommendations toward how we maintain things. So. But anyway, I appreciate your time. Thank you. I really do appreciate when councils actually do read our report, and it's very obvious that there's strong value and commitment from council to support recreation, parks, and culture. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your time and presentation. All right, moving along, we got 3 late items. There's no late items. 4, we have new councillor business. 4.1, Councillor Javetkov, in-house tourism plan. I know you had 3 on here, so if you want to just go through, you might as well go through all 3.
Okay. So these are, the reason there's 3 this morning is because these things I've been thinking about over time, and obviously I've procrastinated until the last minute. The first one, it's in-house tourism plan. So whereas council passed a motion to bring tourism in-house, and whereas the motion included a commitment to review the success of the decision in 2 years' time, and whereas council is ultimately responsible for the budget, therefore the review must be based on predetermined criteria defining the expectations of council. Therefore, be it resolved that administration develop a comprehensive list of expectations to measure the success of the initiative and present the expectations to council for approval prior to the end of December 2022, and further that council use the approved list to determine the future direction of tourism. So if we get a seconder, I can elaborate a little bit.
Councillor Parslow, second.
So I didn't vote in favor of bringing it in-house, and I've got some concerns. Basically, we build, and it's hard to undo these types of things. And if you try and undo it, and I know there's some protection from this, but if you establish a union operation and then you decide to contract it out, the contractor usually carries the responsibility for those union people as well. So that's my concern. And so the measurement, I think, is important, like to to have some objectives and to be able to look at the whole thing. And I think it has to be done before 2 years is up, because if you're going to change the system, you need time. You need some lead time there, 6 months or whatever. But anyways, that's the rationale behind it.
Thank you, Councillor Javetkov. Can I just get some staff clarification on this? Because I just, like the original motion, wasn't this part of the plan was for the staff to bring it back? So I'm just a little confused why, unless I'm misunderstood. So I just wanted some clarification.
Yes, it was, as was written there by December 2022. We'll see that. So this is in the works, and I will let Shantae speak to that part. Just a quick one on your concern, Councillor, about the union, and certainly understanding that. We have met with the union to talk about what we would like to do here by bringing it in-house for 2 years, doing an evaluation. If it was then determined that we would maintain it in-house, it would then become a permanent position, is what I would say with the union. They have agreed to work with us on this, that if 2 years from today under our evaluation, the tourism being brought in-house is not working for the city of Dawson Creek, and the city chose to go outside and get a separate contractor, there's no successor rights. We've negotiated that with the union, QP. These would not be permanent employees of the city at that point. But a very important point that you raise, because traditionally it would, and the contract is worded that way, but I think it speaks to the willingness of the union, QP, to work with the city for the betterment of their unions and the city as a whole. So, all right.
Thank you, Blair. Councillor Parslow. Sorry, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Councillor.
Am I on? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite sayings from Alice in Wonderland is, if you don't know where you're going, any direction will do. It's very clear to me also from all the countless experiences I've had and training I've had that if you don't begin with the end in mind, in other words, know clearly what you're trying to accomplish and establish a whole battery of measurement tools, it's doomed to, you're going to get a report that may be quite meaningless, and staff really don't know what we're after. So I think this work that we're going to, the Council of the Day will see in December is vitally important. And I think it should be a practice for everything, all initiatives, all new ventures, that we have some clarity with the help of staff and from the elected people. What are we aiming for, right? And how would we know that we're successful? So that's why I support this, and will always call for the need for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Shante?
Through the chair. One of the things that we're trying to work on right now is we're not tourism experts, so we have looked at taking it in-house. When we looked at some of the information, some of the things that we identify right off the bat is we need to have an event calendar. The event calendar that was up and running was not necessarily working for us, and it was identified through the master plan as well as the contact list of community groups within our community. Our understanding is that we are going to be doing a visitor center that was reduced. It's $260,000 a year. So we're going to be operating 7 days a week in the summer, and we'll be operating 5 days a week in the off season. Within that, we will be opening the tourism center. We will be working on the tourism magazine, which will be coming out in January 2023. We will be engaging with the community, especially businesses, hotels, and the group's RV parks to figure out what's missing, what are they happy with, what do they need. That's the information that we understand that we'll be doing. If there's something else that council does want, please direct us as well, because it's new for us as well. We do believe that we have our neighboring community that has worked with tourism. We are doing our research. We're working with the current group right now to find out what happens. Like, for instance, Destination BC, we need to receive that grant from them. We'll get the information out in November, so we receive that grant. I believe it's $20,000. So those are the things that we're doing right now to determine what we need to do, but we know that we are going to be working on a calendar so the community knows, and how do they submit events and activities that are within the community. That's number one and foremost, that we have to have that. We have to make sure that the contact list that we have within our community is up to date, that we know who they are and what they are. We also want to go back to look at the MRDT as well with the new council to determine, working with the new mayor, and then also figure out if there's anything else with tourism. So please direct anything that you can for our way as well, but we do have some ideas that we do know that we need to improve, and we need to apply for grants and find funding in that to be able to operate within tourism and engage in the community and to be a part of that.
Thanks, Shante. Councillor Javetkov?
Yeah, the motion is about getting a set of expectations approved by council, but just on another point on the concept of having it in-house is it takes the competition aspect away. We're spending $250,000 and there is no measurement as far as competitive bids. So that was one of my other concerns, but it's nothing to do with this actual motion.
Okay. No other questions? I'll call the vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 4.2, we have Councillor Javetkov reason the Kenborg Wall of Distinction.
So,
Oh, just once. Could you hit your button, please?
this is another...
Councillor Javetkov. Paul?
Your mic.
There you go. Thank you, Councillor Javetkov. Yeah. I was going to throw something at you, but...
This has been ongoing, and it's another one of these continuity issues that I worry about. Like, you know, you get stuff started 20 years ago, and then it sort of gets lost in the shuffle over the years. But anyways, the subject is the Kenborg Wall of Distinction, Whereas the Kenborg Wall of Distinction was adopted by Council as a primary venue to recognize exceptional people from the South Peace, and whereas Council has chosen to locate the wall in the main foyer of the multiplex, and whereas the wall is a significant stop of interest for tourists and the public, and especially for family and friends of those recognized, therefore be it resolved that the Kenborg Wall of Distinction is recognized as an essential point of interest in the city and is protected and advertised as such. And if we get a seconder, I'll elaborate.
Councillor Wilbur, second. Councillor Jevekov?
Okay, so I attached an explanation of where the thing started. It started in 2007 actually. At the 2006 Oil and Gas Conference, we came up first with a legacy project, which was a heliport at the hospital, and South Peace Oilmans took it on as a project. We got a engineered design for the heliport. It was at that time just over $6,000, and we presented it to the hospital board or to the hospital administrator, and it was basically turned down flat. So we went to Plan B, and at the time, the city was dealing with the concept of recognizing people, like, you know, when it's recommended by the public to recognize an individual, and well, how do you do it? You know, we're naming streets and different things, and we didn't really have a good system. So Alvin Stedel did some research around the province, and he came up with an idea that was used, I think, in Nanaimo or something, and it was a wall. It was outdoors, and it was a concrete wall with a bunch of plaques, I guess, on it and stuff. We talked about that, and because of the security and weathering and stuff, we chose not to put a wall out, but recommended that we use the wall concept but have it inside. So anyways, the wall was chosen as the way to do it, and we recommended to put it into the multiplex, which is what happened. So it started off, and for one reason or another, we've got, I think, 4 people recognized in each area of interest, and then it kind of slowed down, and the people at the multiplex were covering it up with the black curtain. So if there's an event in there, they'd cover the wall, which is not the idea. I mean, the idea is to have people be able to look at it. We intended on putting some lights in, but you know, when they started covering it, then things kind of slowed down, and we haven't done much in the last, about 6-7 years, I guess. Anyways, I thought that we should be, I guess it's time to reassert our support for it, if we're going to support it. And there's been a lot of money spent on it, a lot of work done on it. I don't know. It may be that nobody here has seen it or looked at it. I don't know. So anyways, the information there, and well, I would say it was well planned out, because I was part of the planning committee. And you know, there's a lot of things we can do. I mean, every day we come up with people that should be recognized on it or could be. And anyways, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see us reassert the importance of it, and ask the multiplex not to cover it up. And I'd like to see some lights installed there, which I believe the Oilmen's Association is committed to do. But, you know, it's time for us as a council to reassert the importance of it, I guess. So that's the rationale.
Thank you, Councillor Dretkoff. Councillor Wilbur.
Thank you. I'm happy to support this motion, and I think sometimes life gets busy, and we do these great things, and then we forget to take pride and be honored by the people in our community that are recognized on that wall. And I don't believe that it should be something that's covered up ever. And looking at the decision we're making around tourism, I think that could be a point of interest. We're a great community with great things and great people, and I think we should take pride in that and honor the people that are on that wall. So I'm very happy to support this motion.
Thank you. I said one question. Obviously, I think it's a great idea, and what the Oilmans have done, it's amazing. All the stuff they've done in our community. My one thought, Paul, or Councillor Dubak-Koff, is just that we haven't done much with it in 7 years. And then you also had a request to add some lighting in there. Just wondering if this is something we should maybe put off to next council meeting and have staff bring back a report, just exactly what our plan would be moving forward and the cost to add lights. And is it something now that the South Peace Oilmans, they honor the people that go on that wall, or is it something that the city honor? Councillor Dubak-Koff.
Well, the way the plan was set up, if you look through it, there's 3 categories. There's a business category, which is.
Can you guys just pay attention, please? Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Dubak-Koff.
It's the business category is to recognize significant contributions to the economic development of the South Peace. So somebody that's contributed significantly to the South Peace, and the map is there on that thing. It goes all the way out to Gordondale. The South Peace, these are all people that have affected, if they're recognized, they've affected the economy of our city and the whole area. People like Kenborg, who employed thousands of people over the years. He was active in Arctic with oil and gas, and started with one cat doing land clearing before we were using poplar for doing some construction materials. That's the kind of person that we had envisioned that would be recognized, and we had a committee organized to select that. So the way that it was set up, we had the main committee. I was involved with it, Charlie and Judy Loisel. And then we had subcommittees. So the business had a subcommittee of, do you remember, Charlie?
I remember the sports, Dick Powell headed the sports group, right?
Yeah.
Business. Was Jim Inkster involved?
Jim Inkster was involved. Yeah. So anyways, these committees were, they're on their own. So what they did, they advertised for nominees, people that could be recognized, and then they would select a person. They'd bring it to our main committee. We'd approve it, and we advised the city, but the city wasn't actually involved with the process. But as far as a nominee, the city could definitely nominate somebody, or any individual could nominate somebody, and there's a description of what to submit for a nominee. The nominator, the address, the phone, the category, the reasons for the nomination in no more than 1,000 words, because these were then put on the plaque,
Oh, okay.
the write-up. So basically that's how it's set up. I've got a lot more documents. I didn't submit them for this, but I've got the whole planning thing at home on my computer on my desktop.
So, Councillor Jubekov, when you say like in here it says the subcommittees will be appointed in October, is it the South Peace Oilmans that appoints them, or was
It's the main committee.
Oh, okay.
So the thing is being carried by the South Peace Oilmans because the South Peace Oilmans took on the legacy project from the conference.
Yeah.
Because when you have a legacy project, we're, actively trying not to pass on costs to the city with the legacy project. You could have said, well, here, city, we raised 50,000, so could you do a legacy project? And then, staff would have to do it.
Yeah.
We didn't want to use the concept of a gift that keeps on taking. We wanted to make sure that the city wasn't burdened with the cost of this, although it is a benefit to the city. So that's how it's continuing on. Okay. So the main committee, which we'll have to, if Charlie is willing to stay on it, and I am, and we'll have to replace Judy, and then we'll have to revitalize the other committees as well.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm in favor of this. So, is there any more? Oh, Councillor Parslow?
Well, I think Paul's addressed this is no cost to the city. I mean, the South Peace Alderman going to look after it. But when we first started, Judy Loisel, as you know, is a very wonderful lady, but also was interior design. So she looked after all the layout stuff. And we've got a good starter frame, so it's aesthetically going to stay tight. And you'd be surprised the people who, when we first started it, right, recognized it and were pleased to see it happening. I'm glad that the board's leaving this here for council to consider making this a place that is not overlooked and is properly displayed, and there should be some reference for that, as people who are interested can be directed there by the tourism people. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Thank you, Councillor Jubekov. Did you want to speak again?
Yeah, just
okay.
one more comment. There are a couple. So there's a business section to it, and I've explained that. There's the sports section, which includes athletes and officials that have excelled in sports recognized at the national level. So, we have a lot of places already to recognize local people and, in the arenas and that type of thing. But to set out people that have developed or excelled at nationally, we thought there should be a little better, more recognition or a different recognition. So that's what we did with sports. And we've got, I think Lance Mulvihill is on there for rodeo, and Phil Sykes is on there. There's a speed skating guy that's on there. And anyways, it's like you get a lot of comments, when you advertise, well, we should recognize so-and-so and so-and-so, but it's at a national level. So it's, a little higher recognition. That's how we've approached it. And then the professional includes all professional endeavors. So it goes from, somebody that's involved with business or doctors. We've got a military person on there that's, again, at a national level. And it could be musicians. We've grouped it in so that it covers all professionals. So,
thanks, Councillor Jubekov. I'm going to call the question to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have 4.3. Councillor Jubekov reading the history of the Dawson Trail.
okay.
Councillor Jubekov, can you just hit your button, please? Thank you.
My thing is too small to read here. It's just a little postage stamp. Anyways, what I want to do is just give some information about how the Dawson Trail evolved. We started it. It's in the write-up if you guys can read it. I can't remember. Was it no, it was in 1997, I believe. Eh? Anyways, and it evolved. It included the Kin Club, the Rotary Club of Dawson Creek, and the South Peace Oilmen's Association. And all three clubs were involved with it. And so we developed it. Our section was from the library over to 17th Street. And this was one at the time that we weren't considering the gift that keeps on taking. Harold Hansen talked about it, but the city voted to accept it anyways, this gift, the trail that they would have to maintain forever. So it went up to 17th Street, and then that was the first section. And then from 17th Street, just north of 102nd, we went from there out to Tubby's Trailer Court, basically, to access Rotary Lake. And that section, because it was crossing private land, we had to purchase some land to ensure that the trail would be protected over the years. So Rotary purchased 7 acres in there for $25,000, and which seems excessive, but because you probably could have bought the whole quarter at that time. Anyways, and then dedicated it to the city for park purposes in perpetuity, but to be available to the Rotary Club, because that's who paid for it, to develop as a nature park type thing. And that's why Rotary recently started getting active in it again, and they named it the Ken Haverland Park.
Yeah.
So that's basically the history of it. And we did go through a naming process. There were a couple of names suggested there, and we selected Dawson Trail as the name of the trail. And then the last part was the bridge that was that collapsed, or it didn't collapse, it was condemned, and we had to tear it down. The city tore it down, replaced it with a temporary bridge, and then again it was a legacy project to, I must have my dates mixed up. That must have been the 2006 one, and the signs were the 2003. It's a good thing I wasn't involved with 3 oil and gas conferences. Anyways, it was a legacy project, and there was some money raised at the conference, and then the oilmen took it on. And this was where we had, the first option was a heliport at the hospital. And then we chose the bridge. So it's lucky I wrote it down. Anyway, so we went ahead and we got information from the city, I think, on the, how the bridge had to be in there, the heights and that, for the 200-year flood. And then we developed the rest of it with engineers and whatever, and then built it. It was a big project. It was a considerable size project. And it's just another, I don't know if some councillors even are aware of it, so I included a picture of the monument that we put up, which I was going to suggest that, this design could actually be used for, we have the 10th Street is, there's a recognition there for the year and that. This year the thing was done. We got the plaque built. It's a brass plaque. And we sent it down to this concrete company in Quesnel, and they built the thing and inserted the plaque in there, and they have 2 holes in the bottom of it. So we put a couple screw piles under there and set the thing on those screw piles, and it's it's a nice design. It looks good, and it's there on 107th Avenue. So I drive by it all the time too.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Duetkoff. It was nice for you to share the history of that, and obviously a
Yeah,
huge
this
thank
is
you.
just information.
Yeah, it's awesome though, and I use it almost every day, and the amount of people that use it in our community, it's amazing, so thank you.
We got the paving done. We didn't do it, but BGS volunteered the paving there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So new councillor business, we have, it's not open for, like it wasn't a motion, so. You want to make a motion? Yeah, okay. Councillor Parcel?
Well, I'm just making a motion that we receive this for information, so it's formally recorded.
Okay.
I think that's the intention that Paul wanted to make sure that there's a record of it. So unless we don't, either to receive it as information. That's the intention.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor
Thanks.
Wilbur?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we need to vote on it?
Yes, can I like to call a vote? Okay, vote's closed. That's carried. Thank you. Any other new councillor business? Councillor Wilbur.
Thank you. I made a commitment and promise, so I have to ask. So through you, Chair, to staff, I'm wondering, do we or have we ever considered hiring trades apprentices for our summer positions so that they can gather them practicum hours? Or do they just have the opportunity that they can apply for positions with the city?
Through you, Mr. Chair, when we put out postings, everybody is eligible to bid on those. We go through a list, whether it be summer students, whether it be returning students who carry what I'll say is some form of tenure if they've worked for the city before. But no, I think it would be wonderful if we were able to secure apprentices, but to have them work in their field of apprenticeship is what would make the most sense. That's not always a possibility for us, but we struggle to get people to bid on jobs, so we encourage everybody. The opportunity is there. I think the city is a great place to work. It offers good pay, good benefits, a great quality of life, and great people to work with. So, yeah, we have nothing that would say we wouldn't entertain that.
Thank you. I promised to ask, so I'm asking. So I'm just going to put it out there then to all of our Northern Lights College tradespeople. Watch for job postings in the summer when you're looking for your hours. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wilbur. Councillor Kemp?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to bring up this pool schedule. Like I realized the pool, had been closed for the month of September for annual maintenance. It just opened up now, starting October 1st. And I look at the schedule, and I've gotten feedback as well as looking at the schedule myself and for personal use. I'm just wondering if there's a way to maybe increase hours, change the schedule to be more accommodating to our residents and stuff like that. It doesn't seem, and I understand we have staff issues, and I understand that it kind of can be tricky, but I'm just wondering if there's been other feedback or if we might be able to look at it to maybe accommodate more time and hours during the week.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Shante?
Through the chair. This schedule was approved by council, so if you would like us to re-look at the schedule, we are more than happy to look at it. We are down still to 2 supervisors that run the deck. We have hired 6 new staff. They are entry-level lifeguards. What does entry-level mean is that they're not able to run the deck. They don't have the experience, the 520 hours to be able to be deck supervisors. So out of those, 4 were from the Aubert program and 2 were from outside. So we have hired 6. So we still are rather short, but we can definitely review the schedule. One of the things when we did take into consideration when we recommended to open the 5 days was Saturday and Sunday people were not working. So those were the 2 days that people would be able to come when they weren't at work. But if council would like us to relook at it, we are more than welcome to, but we are not able to go more than 5 days a week and increase the hours that we have. So say that instead of doing a Saturday to Wednesday schedule, we could do a Tuesday to Saturday schedule if you would like to have some in the week. So we'd have to get some direction of what you would like to have. But at this point, we have not filled the lifeguard 3 position, the 2 lifeguard 2 positions, 40 hours, and the 2 lifeguard 25-hour positions of lifeguards as well. We're still trying to get people to do that. We're still in contact with people. Some people maybe put the resume in, then we find out if then they decide to decline it, whatever happens. But we still have those positions opened and still actively looking to fill those positions. So in the meantime, we're trying to train people, which will take a period of time, and we are looking at doing a report to state that we do want to go back to a 7-day schedule, but we may not be there till next year in September or the following year.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
I've just noticed that you've put in under the mayor's
Oh,
business.
just push your button.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
I've noticed under the mayor's business you put the town hall meeting,
Yeah.
so I'll engage in discussions then, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Is there any other new councillor business? No? Okay, I'm going to call a 7-minute break. Council, back to order. Our next order of business is 5, the adoption of minutes. 5.1, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Kemp, seconded by Councillor Wilbur. I'll call the vote. Okay.
I was going to say, wake up, Brenda.
Okay, the vote's closed. That's carried. Was there any amendments to the minutes? No amendments, no? Okay. Any business arising? No business arising. Any correspondence? There's no correspondence. 8 is reports. 8.1 is report number 22-105 from the corporate officer. Reason revised 2023 council meeting schedule. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. I'll move the recommendation, the report number 22-105 from the corporate officer regarding revised 2023 council meeting schedule be received. Further, that the council meeting scheduled for Monday, November 13th, 2023 be rescheduled to Tuesday, November 14th, 2023.
Thank you. I have a seconder. Councillor Wilbur. Any discussion? I'll call the vote. Vote's closed and it's carried. Number 9 is bylaws. We have 9.1, report number 22-106 from the Chief Financial Officer, reason permissive tax exemption bylaw number 4538, 2022 for consideration of first 3 readings. Councillor Javetkov.
I'll move that report number 22-106 from the Chief Financial Officer, permissive tax exemption bylaw number 4538, 2022 be received. Further, that item 1, the application for a tax exemption from the Dawson Creek Native Housing Society be denied. Therefore, permissive tax exemption bylaw number 4538, 2022 be given first 3 readings with Schedule B, option 1.
I have a seconder. For second time, do I have a seconder? Are you?
I will second it so we can discuss this.
Councillor Parslow, second. Discussion, Councillor Javetkov, did you want to go first?
Yeah, the reason I chose option 1, I think we've dealt with this here about 2 or 3 years ago, it seems to me, and they used to be on the list for permissive tax exemption, and we removed them. And the rationale was that they're basically in competition with multiple other apartment units in Dawson Creek, and basically they're competing. They're subsidized, but they're competing with people that aren't subsidized, and the taxes that they're not paying, if they're exempt, are picked up by all the rest of the taxpayers, including a lot of people that are having trouble staying in their homes because of the cost of taxes and water and everything else. So it's just a fairness issue, the way I see it, and for the amount of tax they're paying, they could probably increase their rental by $25 a month on each unit and cover the taxes. I don't see that as much of a hardship, and I don't know, I don't think we want to burden the rest of the taxpayers with that cost.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow.
Well, we as a municipality have a very high level of permissive tax exemptions. So this is a thorny issue, difficult issue, and I apologize to administration, but I'm going to ask a question just to clarify the issue a little more in my mind. So we have other not-for-profit organizations that I believe do pay taxation. They get no permissive taxation. But let's take the Heritage Heights. Heritage Heights, I believe they pay taxes just like any private, but they're a not-for-profit group. I think their taxes are about $17,000 a year. Now, they provide housing for seniors. We know that a significant majority of seniors live below the poverty line. One article in Maclean said it's going to climbing and it's approaching 80%. So there's a real need for low-income housing and low-income housing for seniors, which I believe not-for-profit groups struggle to provide. So one side of me says if it's a not-for-profit, maybe they should all get permissive tax exemption if they're providing homes to seniors. But then there are other groups who are getting permissive tax exemption that I really wonder if they should be getting it. And I know this has gone around and round in circles, right? So this is why I feel, Terry, I should have asked this question prepared for you so you could answer. Is Heritage Heights on your list as a, they don't receive permissive tax, do they? No. Okay, so in the case of, let's say, Southview, they don't either, but the taxes are paid by BC Housing for the Dawson Creek Society for Community Living. They get a grant, right? So what I'm trying to say, we have a mismatch going on in this town. And then Paul's point is very valid as well. There are some private operators who strive to provide housing for seniors as well. And so what do? That's why we talked about this recently, and we need to have a regime, and we'll look at this again. So that's why I'm saying no change, just stay where we are at until we have a complete review. So that's why I'm supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Thank you. I won't be supporting the motion. I think that number 2 is the better option. I think those that are providing housing for seniors, the ones that Councillor Parslow has mentioned, have the ability to apply if they so wish. Also, the Native housing does provide subsidized housing for those that are the most vulnerable in our community. And we're hearing strongly from the community that we have a housing issue. And so we are talking about people who, in many cases, get less than what a senior gets, and they're trying to provide themselves with shelter and housing. They're also working with members of our homeless community to put them into housing. So I think right now, if I remember correctly on the list, they got about 96%. If we went with number 2, they'd get 100%. So when we're hearing from the community that we have a housing problem and the people most vulnerable in our community are the ones that need the housing and this organization is providing it, I think that we need to assist them in providing that. And I don't think they're in direct competition with the private sector, because the private sector does not subsidize rent. So I will be voting against this motion. Option 2 is the best for me from what I've heard from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilbur. Councillor Parslow?
Just a point for information, the manager of Heritage Heights, who I know, said that they applied for permissive tax exemption, and they were non-profit, not-for-profit, and they were denied. So they have tried, okay, and they've been denied. And there they have a whole bunch of tiered rental, depends upon income. So there is some people heavily subsidized there, and some pay the normal rate, depends on income. So we're heading into one group gets it, the other group doesn't get it. It's not the way I like to do business.
Thank you. I'm kind of, agree too that it seems like there needs to be more of a consistent rule, but there is other places that are rentals and that are nonprofits that, are receiving the permissive tax exemption. And just some numbers too for 2023, because it's only anything over $10,000. It would cost the city $461 the first year. Is that correct? $798 a second and $1,024 the third. Because anything over 10,000.
So just to clarify, that's not the cost to the city. That's the cost to so for this instance, so in 2023, the estimated taxes for Dawson Creek Native Housing Society would be $11,023.97. So per our bylaw, they're granted a permissive tax exemption up to $10,000, and this is the second year, so they would pay 45% of the $1,023.97. So they would be, if adopted, 96% exempt from taxes through BC assessment.
Oh, okay. For all of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? I'll call the question. Call the vote. The vote is closed. It's defeated. Is there anybody else that would like to? Oh. Yeah, another. Councillor Kemp.
Hi, I'd like to move the report recommendation, that report number 22-106 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding permissive tax exemption bylaw number 4538, 2022 be received. Further, that the application for a tax exemption for Dawson Creek Native Housing Society be approved. Therefore, permissive tax exemption bylaw number 4538, 2022 be given first 3 readings with Schedule B, Option 2.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilbur? Any discussion? No, I will call. Okay, sorry. Supposed to breathe. Sorry, Brenda.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm unable to add a motion at this time, so we would need a manual vote.
Okay. So I'd like to call the vote. Those that are in favor? Opposed?
What are we voting on?
On option 2. Sorry. on option 2, and that was the motion by Councillor Kemp.
I'm opposed.
Okay. Councillor Javetkoff's opposed.
I'm abstaining.
Yeah, he's in favor. All right, so the vote is closed. Number 10 is mayor's business. Just an update. We had a town hall meeting that the Chamber of Commerce put on, which would be a couple weeks ago now. So I just wanted to say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and all those citizens that attended, and just let them know that we definitely heard the concerns from our community, and this council and mayor is, addressing them, and we've been having a lot of discussions around solutions. So I just wanted to recognize that. Number 2, the YMCA childcare. I had a Zoom conference with them last week. This was something that Mayor Bumstead worked on before, but I had a Zoom conference with them last week, and they're going to be presenting at our next council meeting just about childcare in Dawson Creek and some opportunities there. So it's very exciting. And then 3, the community events. I was asked as acting mayor to drop the puck at the Dawson Creek Kodiak's home opening game. So I did that. They had a nice, little tailgate party in front of the arena before, and it was nice to see so many. There was probably like 50 or 60 kids there, plus the team, plus a lot of parents. So it was nice to see everybody gathered, and it was very successful. And there was a very good crowd too for the game. I think it was probably quite a few people in that arena, at least 400 to 500. I would think. It was nice to see. And then also too, just on the weekend, the Kalipe Olympics was going on Saturday. A bunch of us were there, so it was also nice to see that, and I got to, speak on behalf of the city and for the opening ceremonies. So that was it was nice to see, and nice to see their part in the community. So that's all I have for a mayor's update.
Can I ask a question then?
Yes.
So concerning the town hall meeting, I was talking to a guy I know who's been 11 years retired RCMP officer living in this town, served here. We know each other. And just to add to the mix, maybe for this afternoon's meeting, but the system goes something like if somebody gets arrested, they go to court, they get a fine, they're asked how long they need to take before they can pay it. This guy told me when he retired, there was over $4 million of unpaid fines accumulated in this town. The system is broken. It's a joke. And I think we should find out what's the amount of unpaid fines now and why is there no follow-up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to follow up on your comments with respect to the community meeting hosted by the Chamber and some of the things mentioned by Councillor Parslow, I thought, it was a mixed bag. I was appreciative of everybody who came out to air their concerns, and I got a sense of, I guess, what I'd term compassion fatigue, as people are certainly empathetic and sympathetic towards those struggling with homelessness, addiction, and mental health, but they don't like not feeling safe and secure in their property and their person, and that's a perfectly fair way to feel, and I would never suggest that they don't enjoy that right, as everybody in this city does. I just wanted to highlight one thing I felt perhaps we didn't get enough attention in the moment is the role that, number one, chronic offenders continue to play in frustrating this situation, and the extent to which COVID has undermined our ability and the government's ability to deal with that. I did email out to my fellow councillors and city administrators a report that was released quite silently by the provincial government over the weekend, I might add, with not a lot of fanfare, but it does have some alarming statistics in there, and I would urge you and anybody watching this over social media to give it a look. A couple points I would highlight is the number of people receiving custodial sentences declined drastically during the pandemic, from 15,284 admissions in 2019 to 9,165 admissions in 2021. And if you read the report, I think what it's become clear is that aspect of how we deal with those who have turned to crime as a vocation, whether they're doing it to feed an addiction or for some other reason, needs to be reviewed, and there needs to be some public will behind getting those programs stood up. Similarly, what became clear at the meeting was there has been a failure in communication at a local level, and I think a lot of that can be chalked up to COVID as well, as those networks of communication and surveillance atrophy. The people who are vulnerable fall through the cracks more readily, and that's something I think we as a municipality heard loud and clear, and I think we can get to work in helping restore those services. So it was a very good meeting, and thank you for your input.
Thanks, Councillor Rowe. 10.2, do we have anything to do with the delegation? It was just the Environmental Solutions Group Incorporated. Brenda, is there any? Yeah, there's no action. Okay. So we'll move on to 11, the Chief Administrative Officer operational update. And then Blair, just one thing, we had a meeting last Thursday, and there was brought up in the delegation, or somebody brought up from the community about the fair share and how it's situated. So I just wanted to, if you could give a brief update on that and how it actually works for those people that are listening. So
all right,
as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things I'll touch on before I go to the fair share. It is that time of year again where the leaves are falling and covering our yards. We encourage people that when you're raking, you don't rake them out into the middle of the road, but you look after the leaves from your yard. I know some people think that's petty, but what happens is if you're blowing all your leaves out onto the road and we get a wind or some rain, they go over our storm sewers, plug our storm sewers, and create havoc for everybody in your neighborhood. So not only with respect to the city storm sewers, but possibly respect to your neighbors, pick up your own leaves. It does violate the bylaw, and we will have our bylaw officer out. So hopefully this won't catch anybody by surprise, because every year we go through this, and it's a select group that seems to think it's okay, which it isn't. The next one, I've also had a couple of calls recently, and it relates to the election. And I think it's fair for anybody that has ever ran for election or worked within a city that there's a professional protocol where our staff, particularly, I'll speak to me, it was my name used, that the CAO of a city doesn't come out and endorse one candidate over another, whether it be running for mayor or council. My name has been used out there a couple of times and brought to my attention. I've worked with all of you, and I wish everybody who's running again the best of luck, whether it be for mayor or council. I consider you all friends and capable of the job, or you wouldn't be running for the position. So just to clarify, when people have asked, I understand you're supporting so-and-so, there's a professional protocol we work under, not just in Dawson Creek, but across this country. And I know that the individuals know that I work with across the table. So just to clarify that, because apparently not being on social media myself, I get it brought to me from people that are. So just I wanted to clear that up. The Fair Share Update or Peace River Agreement, as I understand it, an individual talked about that we may have been misleading the public. I'm not sure the words that were used, probably quite a disgruntled individual. But I've been involved with the Fair Share Agreement since 1993. As going back to the first time I was elected on council, we were very fortunate to achieve this document. This document is not a piece of legislation. It is a Memorandum of Understanding. In 2015, the government of the day decided that they would like to renegotiate it. They asked for the region to open it up, because they wanted to make some changes. It is solely at their discretion. It is a document that I don't think, would be taken away, but the reality is an MOU at the stroke of a pen at the cabinet table could be removed. So to think that it would take signatures of all the signatories to the agreement from the Peace River Regional District to eliminate this is false. It's just very misleading if somebody said that at a public meeting. We've worked very hard, this region, and that's collectively. Every community, the rural directors, the Peace River Regional District, who has been the lead with all of our municipalities. It grows at 2% per year right now. We're just over $50 million is what this region receives. It is distributed by a very complex formula that is based on population, your industrial assessments in class 2, 4, and 5. A number of factors come in. But we have spoke about this for a number of years, and some people will accept it and some won't. The Fair Share Agreement, or the Peace River Agreement as it's called today, was put in place to help with infrastructure costs for the communities in the region providing these services. Over the years, for whatever reason, a portion of this money was put into operations. Always, I think, with a bit of trepidation about doing that because it was meant for infrastructure. The city of Dawson Creek made a decision that they were going to pull money out of the operating budget and put it back to where it was rightfully dedicated to, which is capital expenditures, whether it be, roads, buildings, and so on. This council made a decision to achieve that by 2030. That meant moving $7 million out of a $40 million, I'm using round numbers, out of a $40 million operating budget. Very difficult to do, very difficult. That can come through reductions in spending in your operations, and it can also come through enhanced revenue from other sources. So far, it's been a mix. I believe the city's done a good job. It's still not without its challenges. We planned on achieving the 70-30 split by 2030. I'm an optimist. I think we can achieve that a year or two early with the work that council has done, and I presume the new council will carry on that work. So, yeah, this is not enshrined in a piece of legislation, so could it disappear? Yes. I was part of a government that negotiated. I had the honor of representing this region when I wasn't elected to negotiate this agreement on the new scale. So it's a great document, nothing cast in stone. If anybody thinks anybody has been misled, I encourage them to phone me. Hopefully the people that make those comments have read the document thoroughly and understand it, but if I can give any more clarity, I would. It's a great document, means a great deal to us. We get about $15.5 million, I'll use as a round number, a little more, give or take. We collect about $19 million in taxes. So to put the importance of this document in perspective, if it disappeared, if even half of it disappeared, the city would be in dire straits. So I can't be any clearer than that, and it's unfortunate someone chose to make a political stand, probably not knowing what they were talking about.
Thank you for your update. Thank you. Councillor Parslow, question?
So thank you for that succinct overview. Is it correct that the highest level of use of the Peace River Accord, the fair share, for operation purposes was in the mid-80%?
Historically, and I'm going from memory now, we handed out a document some time ago. I don't have it with me, but I think we crested 80% in the operating side of our budget at one point through the city. And, Councillor, many people said, "Oh, who do you blame for it?" I don't blame anybody. This money was spent to deliver services that people wanted. Councillors supported it, and mayors of the past. I think the reality was people realized that we were using too much in the operating side, and we had to make that shift to get it back to capital. So we still have an incredible city. I think we are running a tight financial ship and putting money where it should rightfully go.
Just one additional. The other municipalities, I know, spend it all in capital. but even their CAOs are petrified about the loss of this money for their capital projects, whereas we are petrified for operation and capital. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. 12, the diary. Nothing for the diary. 13, consent calendar. Get a motion to receive consent calendar. Councillor Kemp. Second, Councillor Wilbur. Call the vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. 14 is 2022 strategic priorities. 14.1, 2022 strategic priorities. There's
Nothing new on that, Your Worship.
nothing new in that.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. 15, media question period. There is no media here. 16, I'd like to have a motion to recess to close as per the notes in the agenda. Councillor Kemp, Councillor Wilbur, second. I'll call the vote. Vote is closed. So that's carried. So we'll move to closed. Take 5 minutes and move to closed.